Hi, my name is Christine, Sugar Mama in South Korea, and this is Grace. Yeah, I'm a longtime fan. I've been coming here for maybe about a year, over a year now. I'm really glad. She loves brownies. The guilty pleasure. And this is our first baking class in South Korea, home baking. And we're going to make chocolate chip cookies, which seems very simple, but there's some things you can learn in making chocolate chip cookies. And also, cookies in Korea are very different than cookies in the United States. So, when you get a new recipe, the first thing is very important to make sure you read the recipe. Make sure you get all the ingredients and you actually know what you're doing before you start, because you want to make sure you can do everything and you have everything set up to completion. So, here's your recipe. And it says on the top right there, the ingredient things that we need are the mixer with the paddle attachment and cookie sheets, which are right there, and parchment paper, or we have used silicone mats, and that way we don't have to have more waste. So then looking at the ingredients, it says in the large mixing bowl to mix the butter, the sugar, and the eggs. So we did it in grams because it's more accurate than cups. And so we have all we have sugar, we have brown sugar, and unsalted butter. And it has to be room temperature in order to be able to work with it, because otherwise it's a solid brick. And then eggs, also room temperature. So if you know you're going to bake, you would want to take them out of the refrigerator either the night before or that morning, then bake in the evening, because room temperature is really how you want everything. Unless a recipe specifically asks otherwise, you want everything to room temperature. It incorporates better that way. So the first thing we're going to do is mix those ingredients. And then in a separate bowl, we're going to sift the flour, baking soda, and salts. And then we can put that into the bowl and mix them up. Now, when it comes to the eggs, the sugar, the flours, it's easier to mix them in the mixing bowl. But this one at the end, of course, has chocolate chips. So when it comes to chocolate chips, we don't want to use the mixing bowl. And that's why we have a wooden spoon. We're going to mix it with the spoon. It helps to keep the thicker ingredients from getting broken. And also, we have more control over incorporating it. So we have everything that we need. And then we can get started. Okay? So you have a towel there. It's always good to wipe out your mixing bowl because you never know what flew in there. Okay. So when you put your mixing bowl on, you would want to tear it out. So then now your mixing bowl is at 0. So then the first thing we have is 150 grams of sugar. 149 you would be okay. Oh. Because that just, there, I jumped up to 1K. Look at that. Oh, okay. Not just that we're done with this. And then you want to grab the brown sugar. So then you have to tear it out again to 0. And how much brown sugar? Yep. There, all right. How much brown sugar does it say? 160 grams. Okay. I'm so scared of what? As long as you kind of keep it separate in the bowl, you can always grab out. So it's not other things you wouldn't be able to with like olive oil or something. Okay, so now we have the 2 sugars. Now, when it comes to the brown sugar, you can use light or dark brown sugar. This is a darker one. It depends on what color you like your cookies and how much flavor. I prefer the darker brown sugar. I prefer cookies that have a little more color, a little more shading to it. And the stronger the flavor, it just melds together really well. And obviously the difference between dark and light has to do with how much molasses they add to it, because that's what actually makes it dark in the first place, or makes it brown sugar. And then it says 227 grams of butter. So here's a stick of butter. You can use your knife that you have there. 227 grams is about half of the stick. So you want to zero the tear out. And then add about half. Ooh, 223. 222. That's pretty close. But you're going to tip it towards you. Yes. Okay, and now put your beater in. Nope, that's a whisk. Okay. The whisk is for like meringues and whipped cream. Like this. Yep. But you have to approach it from a straight angle. You can always cut it into pieces. Yeah. We don't usually just cut it into pieces because we just work with it. But the other thing is your butter could be softer. So that's doing that. Let's crack eggs. I never crack them into the bowl that you're actually baking like for two reasons. One is it helps to make sure you don't get a shell in it. And number two, if you have a bad egg, if you have a rotten egg, you just killed whatever ingredients you have. So it's important that you make sure that it's fully mixed. So then right now yours is kind of peeking stuck on the outside. So you'd want to stop the beater, let it down, lower it, and scrape off the edge of the pan. Okay, it looks thoroughly mixed. There's a little bit of butter left over, but you still have more missing to do, so it'll be okay. Yeah. So let's do the flours. Okay, so you're gonna need the bowl. Now, flour when it comes, it is not it's been cooking a while. It gets pressed down, it gets shipped. So we want to make sure that our flour is light and fluffy and is not balls of flour, because no one wants to bite into a ball of flour. So what's interesting about the scale and using a metal bowl and the sifter and the flours or powdered sugar, it has a tendency of shorting out the scale. So we don't really want to do that. I'm not using the sifter over the scale. So how much flour do we need? We need 310 grams. Okay. 310 grams is a little over 2 cups, basically. It's like about 2.5 cups. So I'm just going to do extra because I'm afraid. Is this for a regular batch? So this recipe is for about 50 cookies. 50 cookies, yeah. I don't remember. Our size cookies are this big, so you can make a bigger cookie, but you change the texture the bigger the cookie is. So the next thing we had is what? What's the next thing? Baking soda. Okay. You know what baking soda does? No. What's the purpose? Baking soda is something that makes it rise. So now the baking soda, the same thing, is it has a habit of clumping. And we don't want to bite into a thing of baking soda. Because let me tell you, biting into a mouthful of baking soda is pretty disgusting. So then we need salt because we used a butter that doesn't have salt. So we need a half a teaspoon. It's right here. So obviously you wouldn't take a chunk of salt. I use baking soda for my laundry. Yeah, same baking soda. Yes. Exactly the same baking soda. So then want to grab 2 whisks, okay, and just whisk it a little to combine it, to give it a little head start combining it. So this you want to do slow because you don't want to put flour all over the place, and then you've just lost your calculation. Okay. Yeah. And you also don't want it on top of the beater because then now you have flour that won't incorporate. It's a lot harder than I thought. Just do it slow, and then you don't have them. You lessen the mess. So remember how you started by going this way, so now you want to go the reverse way. The rest we have by hand. So then you have to get your dough off for your beater. So when you do, for example, like the walnut cookies, or is it raisins, like oats? Do you add them at the end? Oats are a little different because it's not as important whether or not their shape is maintained, and it probably will. And typically when I use oats, I actually ground them a little bit because sometimes there's just too much oat. Yeah, like I don't want to bite into that much oat. Well, okay, look at your beater and look at my beater. Oh, that's cookie right there. How a cookie? It's like almost a whole cookie. Once you put all the chips in, that's a cookie. Remember, you have to So if you feel like you can't use it because it's too straight, it's not thin enough, then just grab your other one. Better? Yeah. It's hard to clean when you're starting with something dirty, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
No, it isn't. It's not enough. So you don't have to do this, but I like to have chocolate in every bite. I don't want to just have it in a chip. So what we do here is we like take about half the chips and just chop them so that you get chocolate in every like little sprinkles of chocolate, little tidbits of chocolate in every bite. So you just take some, stick, and then you just slowly chop them because if you don't do it slowly, you're gonna have chocolate chips all over the room. And if you were to use a food processor and do this, someone did it one time and I really wasn't a fan of the results. So I much prefer to take the time and just chop chips. So now I have I have chocolate dust, I have chocolate little bits. I think it adds more character to a chocolate chip cookie. But you don't have to do this. This is just because I like to have little pieces of chocolate. I think it looks tastier as opposed to a whole chip. Okay, so I don't have to cut all of them. I just have to cut some of them. And then you're going to add it to your bowl. I'm going to leave some chips out because I want to add some to the tops. To me, people like to see chips on top. It makes you feel like you're getting more chocolate, right? Because if they're hidden underneath, nobody knows they're there. I lost one. And that's mine. I love this tool. This makes sure I get everything out of the bowl. If you take your dough and put it on your cutting board, there's little pieces of chocolate still on your cutting board, so you can get more chocolate in your cookies. And then you scrape and then use the scraper to get every last bit out of your bowl. At the shop, we make our cookies 25 grams. So we make a ball and put it on the scale. And then before we put it into the oven, we put a few chocolate chips on top. So it's actually more than 25 grams. But they don't have to be a perfect circle. You can make them perfect circle. But when we make them at home, they were never a perfect circle. And they tasted just as good. In fact, you can have more fun because they end up turning into like, ooh, what shape is that cloud? You know, I don't know. I'm a mom. Are you someone who likes your chocolate chip cookies softer or crunchier? Softer. Okay, so then you always like go under in your time and you check them because everyone's oven is different anyway. So you want to make sure that you get to learn what your oven can do timed and temperature wise. But once you cook the cookie too long, it can't go back. Do you want to put yours on the next one up, but on the top of it, like right here? Yeah. Yeah. Just slide it back. Yeah. Okay. Now we want to put the timer on for about. This is a hotter oven, so I'm gonna do it for 6 minutes, and just check on them in 6 minutes. So these have a little crispness on the outside. See how there's the edge is a little brown, but the inside, if it's still a little light, it's good because then you're gonna have a softer cookie. So I think these are okay. Okay, so yours is the smaller one, of course. I'm sorry, mine is the smaller one. Tell me about what. So have you ever had like cookies with milk, or has it always been cookies with coffee when you were little? When I was little, cookies with milk. And then after that, cookies with water.
Really? How come?
Because I didn't want to dilute the taste of the cookie.
So this is our first baking class together, and I'm a mom. I'm not a teacher in the sense of a baking school in that sense, but I can teach you home baking like a mom would teach her daughter. And as a customer, she wanted to do this, and I was really excited because we know each other and we've seen each other often throughout the past year or so. And whenever she wants fresh brownies, she texts me, "Make brownies today." So I think we have a good relationship. And when she comes, we like to talk a little bit because our bakery is a nice, small, quiet bakery. So as your first baking class here, what did you think?
So, my honest thoughts. So for context, this is my first ever baking class. I have no baking experience, maybe just some dessert making, but nothing technical, nothing where the measurements matter. It's all about stop until the spirit of your grandma tells you to stop. Like that is the type of baking that I knew before. And I think maybe for someone who's never done this, coming here would be really helpful because I know that you make yourself available outside of like meeting you in the bakery. So if I message you, I know that if I message you with some questions about the recipe, any questions, you will let me know. I think compared to maybe you go to a more commercialized baking class, I don't think you feel as comfortable emailing or contacting the teachers and asking them those questions. Um, so I think that's a really good point here, and it was fun. It was a lot harder than I thought. It was a lot more muscles that were involved, like mixing stuff. But it was a good class, and the cookies are really good. So
Success.
success.
So because this was your first class,
Yeah,
it means that everything you did was new.
it was new.
So the
Everything.
next time you do a class, it's going to be more comfortable in the sense of you've already at least done it once. And now if you make cookies at home, then you'll have that. Every time you do something, it's easier and easier. And even if you change the recipe, well, now you know about measuring. Now you know about roughly how much flour so many grams is. Like about the butter being room temperature, the eggs being like things like that just incorporate into the next recipe.
Yeah.
So you'll be building with each class that you take. And then you'll be at a point where like, maybe I just want to try something on my own that wasn't in class. And then you can always ask me questions about that too.
Yeah. And I think it's good because I think sometimes when I'm reading online like recipes, I feel oddly confident and I'm like, oh, it shouldn't matter. Like, it'll be fine if I do like 180 grams instead of the 150. I didn't know that it's actually important. I thought it was just a suggestion.
Certain things, it's not as important. Like you want to add more chips, add your own chocolate chips. The extras, that's not important, but the rest, the ratios are important as to, like, if you add too much flour, you're going to have a really dry cookie.
Or too much butter.
And if you add not enough flour and too much butter, you're going to have a really greasy, flat cookie.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it is important. If you forget eggs, it's not going to stick together. I had someone who made peanut butter cookies and he forgot the eggs. And I'm looking at the cookies and I'm like, why are they falling apart? And it hit me that that's what was missing. And he was like, now that I think about it, I was so worried about the measurements. I totally forgot about the one egg that was in it. So it is really important. There's certain chemistry, involved in its reaction to things. Like if you were to add baking powder versus baking soda, you would get a totally different outcome. If something calls for baking powder and you add baking soda, you will not eat it later, let me tell you. So, yeah. So, as our first baking class, I was really glad to do it together. And I hope someone else will want to join our baking classes too. It's a very intimate setting, it's very easygoing. And I want to share my love of baking so that you have a love of baking. And then we get to eat together and talk about it and just get to know each other and socialize, because life is really about who you're connecting with. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Are you pretty serious? Yeah.